Very
I know you hear this.
So now it's gonna open. And you're gonna go up the-
So, in the
Here, not- Yeah. And I always minimize it, Jenny, just from the so this is the and you can see the top of the water there.
Right, with a trailer.
Hi Corey, you can hear us all right?
Some books and that.
Yeah, we're good.
Okay, great. So we have, we're at
Or anything on track. Well, even if they just for a year. Oh, I've got a bunch of. Copenhagen is one of that. So you're supposed to get 2 shows. Yeah.
We're good, we're on Cory. To join, but other than that, for Nairi and Ryder Lyrics, so we
Put our bikes on the train.
have we'll stop solving problems. Well, this is solving and we're solve this meeting. Or it is 4:01 p.m. on August 1st. It is I acknowledge with respect we are in Robinson Huron Treaty Territory, and that the land on which we are gathered is the traditional territory of the Anishinaabe and known, excuse me, as the Watting. Watting is the home of Garden River First Nation, Achewana First Nation, and the historic Sault Ste. Marie Métis Council. Let's proceed to adopt the minutes of our last meeting, which was only a couple of weeks ago. Could I have someone to move and second the adoption of our minutes of July 18th? Andrew to move, Tobin to second. Any questions, additions, deletions?
Well, I made a comment, but I think Emily responded because I couldn't hear.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, so, the minutes are very lean, Andre.
Yeah.
They mainly reflect resolutions.
Right.
Comments are not really there.
Okay.
So it's just the nature of it.
Yeah.
Okay, so outside of that, anything of concern? Seeing none, all in favor? Those are carried. Thank you. Anyone with pecuniary interest to declare today? Okay, seeing none, we'll move on to the adoption of today's agenda. So looking for someone to move and second adoption of today's agenda. Thank you, Mark, to move. Thank you, Corey, to second. Any additions? Any questions? Seeing none, all in favor? That is carried. Moving on, Emily, will you take us through? We have our climate spotlight. We have a little bit more discussion on the Green Initiatives Fund, and we have our communication strategy. So let's start at the top with our climate action spotlight. Fire Services Matthew Despatie is here.
Okay, thanks, Donna. Okay, so just a reminder for the committee, we have 3 projects that we are looking at moving forward with this year. One of them is the City Department Climate Action Spotlight. The second is the revision of the city's Green Initiatives Fund terms of reference, and also to create a climate action communication strategy and materials. The spotlight, again, as a reminder, we are going to invite every city department to our committee meetings for the rest of the year to provide an overview on what they're doing in their work to address climate change and the city's GHG reduction plan. The goal of this is to help us, the committee, understand what different departments are doing to address climate change and to also increase departmental thinking about addressing climate impact in city day-to-day operations and projects. So this month, I'm pleased to introduce who's been here before, Matthew Patty, Assistant Fire Chief, to talk about what they're doing in fire services. So Matt, you've got the slides. You can just go over this.
Thanks for having me. I'm moving to take for earlier. The project highlights is our outdoor halogen mercury light bulb. We're replacing with LED units. Interior light fixtures, they're also replaced with LEDs. We replaced all our boilers at Fort Hall, which is 650 Garden River Road. We replaced with new, which should reduce city natural gas consumption by 13,454 cubic meters. An incentive of 8,000 received from Enbridge. Also, we recently had some approvals for a rooftop air ventilation unit to be replaced at One Hall on Tancred. which is 80% efficient. The current one was 8% efficient, and the new model is now 93 efficiency plus. 2 and 3 hull are getting new Brad fuel fired heater units. Current ones are at the end of their lifespan. One of them is inoperable with no parts available, which is causing the adjacent one to overwork, which is causing less efficiency and more operating costs. These units are 34 years old, and the rating is 70% or less with new gas-fired heaters, 92% plus, which in turn is less cost to operate, also more environmentally friendly, exhaustion. We just received we've had for this current summer, this past summer, a new electric lawnmower and 4 weed whackers, all battery operated. Also, the plan is to convert our air tooling to all electric, which in turn causes less of electricity to be consumed, and also oil intervals on our compressors. We have a new AC makeup unit is to be replaced, and also with a heat pump, which will help the existing boiler system, heat system, run less and more efficient. And right now we're in the process of purchasing some battery operator snowboarders.
Matt. So that's just a snippet of some of the stuff that they're doing in fire services. I did send you, I know it was fairly recently, there was one question, Andre, I know you asked that about, how we design our roads for the use of fire trucks. Matt provided a bit more of an answer on some of the work that fire services have done, which has been highlighted in the slides, and also plans for a new aerial. So I don't know if you want to speak to that on a high level, if I shared with the committee already,
Sure.
And then we'll open it up for some questions. Should we even talk about their department?
Sure. So right now it's budget's been approved. We're in the process of speccing out a new 103-foot rear mount aerial. And what we're doing is we're removing the rear generator, which in turn would run all our scene lights and all of our electrical tooling or lighting or fans. So what we're doing is replace it with a Tesla battery and an inverter. So, and all our tooling is going electric. So what this will do is when we get to the scene, the diesel engine will shut down, and then everything on the for the scene, regarding the scene lights or tooling, will run off this Tesla battery until a certain point. Then the diesel engine will kick in and charge the battery back up, and then it'll just go in a circle. All our tooling, though, we did install charging stations so we can have backup batteries. So toolings, all our hand tools are electric. Even our extrication tools now, they were first hydraulic units, which needed to run a gas pump for the to run the hydraulic pump. Well, now they're all electric. So we have, it's same as a cordless drill. It's battery, the battery goes in, replace the battery. I don't know if I missed anything on that.
No. Plans for snow removal down the road. Electric.
Yes, the electric snowboarders.
Okay.
We're looking at getting a few of those for the halls. We just did some digging on them just to see what the runtime was, because those snows pretty heavy, and they roughly can do on one charge about a 200-foot driveway, 16 feet wide, with about 2 feet of snow. So they're pretty efficient.
Great. Okay, well, thanks, Matt. Have about 10 more minutes for this item. So I want to ask anyone has any questions.
Anybody got questions for Matt, Andre?
Two questions.
Sure.
Have you considered having less plastic or no plastic, but like converting your lawns to pollinator gardens maybe, or You know, that, and I think, at the fire department, my comment is that you're small enough to be able to consider that, because you're setting a role for other departments. And I, we also have expertise in the house with people, the gardeners of Bellevue Park, so. Yeah, I think I find it, I think it's like everybody's idea of a perfect one looks like a golf course.
Right.
I think like a golf course, the amount of water you use and how much trees they cut, all this other thing. So instead of buying lawnmowers, why don't we have this? That's one thought, and I think that's an opportunity for us, a leadership in stewardship, like in my second question is very big. And it's an issue for North America. It's not an issue for the Sioux, but you may or may not be aware that when engineers design roads, one of the top considerations for the way they design roads for a fire truck to be able to turn around. And so the cul-de-sacs are designed with a certain size and the roads are a certain width. Stuff like that. And what that does, it's like the dog wagging the tail or the tail wagging the dog. It's like, so in North America, compared to say to Japan or Europe, particularly, where you have cities that have very narrow streets and even downtown old Montreal and old Quebec City, the streets were designed before the fire departments got their big trucks, right? So what they do is I know that in Japan, the level of service in the fire prevention and seaman accident, I'm sure is up to par to what we do here, but they use very different vehicles because the streets are so small and narrow. So over here, we design the streets of the park. So that is, I know this is not going to happen today, but it's something to think about because from a perspective of an environment and the way we design cities, fire department actually has a lot of influence. And it's a negative influence because we're so spread out, right? Our subdivisions are very big and very wide, with big streets to accommodate fire trucks. Whereas we have an opportunity for densification, say in some of the urban spaces here, like green spaces, where we could build compact housing and compact stuff with narrow streets, like Mackinac Island kind of stuff. And we can't because the engineering department said we have to go this way because of the fire department. Anyway, so that's just a thought that I know you can't answer that question, but I think it would be interesting to look at what is Japan doing, what kind of vehicles do they use, what is Europe using, what are best practices, and then say, oh, we can do the same job with vehicles outside. And then of course it's safer for everybody, it's less expensive, and I think as far as effectiveness, I assume that if this is effective for partners in Japan as they are, that's just my. Thank you.
Right. Okay, regarding the grass, like what we recommend besides grass, like what's the difference between the grass and
Pollinator garden, maybe Tobin is more, but basically, in a lot of places, you can get plants that grow slowly and grow high, and they don't use a lot of water, and they produce flowers, so you don't cut them, but they don't look like unkept. It's a garden that doesn't require a lot of water. Pollinator gardens, they have the flowers that the bees can get, and then because we have this thing, we think of our lawns, even how is it when you walk down the street, and there's a lawn, all of it, the nice, landscape rocks. You know what I'm talking about, right? So what pollinator gardens are I think the fire department's not expected to have expertise in grass growing, grass cutting, right? But there's other departments in the city that could work with the fire department and say, you know what, we have one fire hall, let's convert it to have no grass. And then we'll plant a pollinator garden. And that becomes like a show for the fire department. Say, look, we do our share, we're eliminating grass cutting. Because lawns take a lot of water. Lawns require cutting, which requires equipment and plumbing. Because pollinator gardens are basically maintenance free, other than a little bit of maintenance on it. And my wife's a big fan of that, so I'm very aware of it. Kind of push more, the middle stuff like that. That's one step lower than that. That's just something. But it's something that we can talk about if you want that.
yeah, well, I know our grass, like we don't water our grass, we just like let nature take care of that. We do have lots of trees also around our halls. So I think our main concern is, as of now, like as a whole, would be just to maintain what we have. You know, and once we can, as the bigger picture, I would think that would be, just good for the city and the whole.
Sure.
And as, the street,
Yeah, that's.
comments that we really like fire services, our scope is mainly providing emergency services, and its main goal is to provide safety for Sioux citizens.
Yeah,
Right.
sure.
The roads, that I think that'd be a discussion to have with a development or engineering.
Well, I know that what I'm saying is that the engineering department will say, the reason we built road this way, is because we have to accommodate the hard one.
Right.
But somebody has to get the conversation going, right?
Yeah, right.
It's an interesting.
But where you draw the line, right?
Yeah, yeah.
West
Well,
trucks there.
you have to shift the line.
That's right. Yeah, sure.
Questions, anybody, Corey or Corey? Not seeing anything, Andrew, Bowman, any questions for Matthew?
No question. I did have this, I remember when the discussion for the proposal for the electric board, we broached that subject, well, and probably with a broader conversation. Obviously, amongst the broader city, so grass. The potential for veterans. That is a right.
And
It's a good one, we're kind of.
and on that topic, we talked about it, why the fire department needs a very small budget, by one more, so that it could be your own budget to get over Jason.
We'll talk
Yeah.
about that. Stop that right now. In our
Yeah,
letter.
yeah.
Andrew?
Sure.
So that is, how far ahead are you thinking of the ideas that you can continue to do? And thank you very much for the work that you have put into reducing your footprint. Are you thinking 2 and 3 and 5 years down the road? Are you thinking as a department, are you thinking a year? Like, what kind of timeline on improvements are you working on?
Well, like as a department, we're always thinking of what we can do. You know, our department, whether it be going green, whether it be, purchasing hybrid vehicles, electric vehicles. And I think for many departments, I think a big thing, the cost of everything, the way everything's going up. And but we do look at, we have our yearly budget, and we're always moving forward to see what we can do to improve fire services with regards to carbon.
Go ahead, Andrew.
Yeah, just, on the previous subject. How much time will you see is going to maintain that?
We roughly cut grass once a week.
And it just-
Yeah, I would say on average 1 hour per all, yeah.
Could maybe, like, who would, let's say there was a design for a fire hall or pollinators or bringing certain bird. Who would that be?
It wouldn't be. I don't think it would come directly from fire, Andrew. I think we would have to, if we wanted to do it properly, look at all of our sites at the city, understand each asset, like the land on each site, determine what would be a good site, like which one has maybe the best opportunity, start from somewhere small, like, it's like fire, they of course they manage their own grass, but so does like public works, like they do community parks, etc. And then like who else? Maybe police, I'm not sure if they have any grass there possibly. But I think like it could be an interesting proposal that maybe this committee could either get together and present or like
In some places, if not, so when we put together from my memory, and I'm going by memory here, when we put together our priorities and we had that list, everybody contributed what they thought were priorities, and then we selected, as a group, we selected the overall priorities based on everybody's input. Did we not have an item in there about sustainable, I think it was more around the idea of sustainable construction,
Yeah.
However,
green development,
right? And
develop a
so,
green development space.
so that could be something that I need to talk about, and I don't think it made it into the 6 recommendations that we put forward.
No.
But it's sort of like a bigger picture thing that we could discuss and put forward some
A
ideas on a
recommendation.
recommendation, and then share with the leadership at the city saying, we'd like you to think more overall about how you develop your facility, not even facilities, but if it's public space, if that's what it is, or exterior space, as you're talking about, then we can direct it towards those things and make those recommendations.
Honestly, make a recommendation to bigwigs and see where it goes. But I don't think we could just look at fire, we should look at all of our assets. So I'd say this is not the first time this has come up at this committee meeting, nor will it be the last, like even in the previous committee it came up. It's an area of interest, and I think it's something that would be a very, like a test pollinator garden on one of the places. So I will look into the process that we would have to pursue, but I think it would be a good agenda item to discuss this committee at another date. Yep. Human hours to mow on, et cetera. Yeah, good idea.
Okay, so we're at the time for this item, so if there's nothing else. Thank you, Matthew. Take your time, and we're going to move on to the second item on our agenda.
Matt, you should leave that for Mark, for sure.
Mark's like, I don't know what we're talking about.
I'm so sorry.
So Emily's going to take us now through, the work we did on the green initiative at our last meeting. And we've got more comments and more feedback this year, and we're hoping to get, all of our input, finalized today so that this can be taken away and, brought back as something that here's what you all said, and here's how we see changing the fund. So we'll go ahead.
So to reiterate, the second project that the committee highlighted that they wanted to work on this year was to revise the Green Initiatives Fund, specifically less red tape, make it easier for community groups to apply, clearer definitions, expansion on eligibility, consider things like intake rounds, allocation for the city and nonprofits. So at the last committee meeting, we had a bit of a round table where everyone could share their feedback. I have collected that information in this in your agenda package. It's where everything is stapled as one. I was a little bit behind, but it's the page number 20 in your agenda package. So just to explain the chart, the method organizer, if you will. There's the attributes, so column 1 within the fund, and then what we have in blue is what's in the current application, and red is on the right, and the red font is what was being proposed for the new revised application. I just wanted to take a few minutes before we go through that, and again open up the table one more time because we did run over in our meeting last month. So I just want to make sure everyone has a chance to share or clarify what they meant. I just wanted to go over a couple of things. So under project eligibility, there were basically two suggestions. Like one was to make the 6 definitions that we have for project eligibility more specific in the evaluation matrix. And then there was also a recommendation of not having those specific categories and keeping it more broad. So I think that might be something we want to discuss. The other piece I just wanted to highlight, and we'll go into this more detail when we go through each section one by one, are the environmental benefits. So there was a lot of discussion last month, it feels like yesterday, but it's August now, on scope 1, 2, and 3 emissions. So what I want to clarify is that at present, we are reporting on scope 2 only per our corporate operations and per our community emissions inventory, carbon accounting. That's not to say that we cannot at another time or expand upon it to scope 1 and 3, but currently that is what we do per the methodology that we conduct our emissions carbon accounting. So I think there may be value in just putting this out there as we go into our discussion, thinking about perhaps the other project that the committee is working on, which is the communication strategy to try to educate the greater community about like what is the difference between scope 1, 2, and 3. Because especially from like some of the smaller nonprofits, I don't know if they have the ability to do those calculations. And there is limited capacity within the corporation, you know, to do that at this point. So I'm just putting that out into the universe. For Green Fund promotion, that was something that was also brought up at the committee meeting last month. As part of the fund refresh, once approved by council, of course, we will put out a press release as well as a series of social media posts to help drum up attention to the Green Initiatives Fund, direct applicants and interested parties to the city's website where the application form will be housed. But I would also like to leverage that as an opportunity for committee members to spread awareness about the fund when it is refreshed to their networks as well. And lastly, before we go into each section of the application in more detail, an operating budget request has been submitted for the 2024 budget, city budget, for the implementation of corporate GHG reduction. So I will provide more details as it goes to channels on the amount, etc. But big step has been done before. Okay, so with that, I'm going to pull up the, I'm gonna have to hit stop share for a moment. I'm going to pull up 3 of the worksheet so I can share it. Zoom. See the share screen. Okay. So just going into the worksheet, like I said, everyone has provided, we've had some good feedback provided so far. I wanted to use this meeting as an opportunity for folks to offer in more feedback or clarify things that were shared. The other piece that I also included in your agenda package, and it's on page 23 and 24, is the evaluation matrix. And actually, that's something that I did not talk about in my previous slide. So, is it here? Oh, I skipped the slide, my bad. So slide 11 of your agenda package, page 11. So we have an evaluation matrix that we as staff, aka me, use internally for Green Initiative Fund applicants to complete the application. So once an application is completed, I work with the applicants throughout the process of the creation of it. It's been evaluated using this assessment matrix before being brought to the committee. I attach the matrix. Feedback is appreciated and welcomed. Moving forward, I will share the matrix score and evaluation sheet with the ESC committee members to accompany any future application. I discussed with my colleagues in other departments who also manage city funds, and the matrix is used by staff internally, not by committee members. It's the responsibility of city staff to provide that to the committee as part of, you know, their package, if you will, to evaluate an application. So I will welcome feedback from you folks on the matrix, but we will not all be using this matrix unless you want to take it when you're considering coming to the meeting to discuss. But we will not have a collection of, you know, scores from everyone. We don't have, we just don't have that as a way that we do things. So that's the matrix. And then one more thing intake periods, that was something that was brought up in feedback for the application as well as the budget cap. I just wanted to share again out into your universe for discussion that some flexibility with dates and amounts for now may avoid limitations on projects. So if we have a really good project that comes in, but it's over $5,000, for example, if we set a cap at that, it would limit some of those projects to go through. So having that flexibility could be valuable. And also when it comes to intake periods, we also want to be aware that certain projects may need to start by a certain date. Anyways, sorry for missing that. I didn't realize I had 2 slides. Okay, so I'm sure you've all had the opportunity. Donna, maybe I'll look to some guidance here. I don't know if you want me to just go through each section. If people had anything else they wanted to add or clarify, any thoughts on it, but I'm happy to go through it, but
I think that you could go through each section, but like briefly and
Okay.
hit the, so we're just, so as we go through each one,
Okay.
we're understanding what the high level recommendations were, right? So for example, in section 1, if I'm reading correctly, you said, you know, there's some feedback that says make it more specific and some feedback that says make it less specific. Correct, right? Correct. So if we could just sort of look at those things, if anybody, you know, we do have a timeline, like back to this cut here. We have until, well, right now we have another 15 minutes to go through this, 15 or 20 minutes by our agenda. We tried to put some time to things so that we could try and stay better on time. So we've got 15 or 20 minutes, so we've got a little bit of time on each one. And, you know, is there anything that hasn't been thought about? Any new ideas that you have? Anything you're particularly, you know, feel very strongly about that should happen? Keeping in mind, we have only, let's call it 20 minutes. Okay. That sounds good?
that sounds good. So again, there is currently, as the fund stands, we have 6 categories for eligible projects listed on the left. I have gone and in the matrix, like added some definitions from like Government of Canada and Government of Ontario websites. So, but I'm curious to hear what the committee thinks about possibly omitting those categories and also, or making or keeping them. Anybody want to weigh in on that, Mark?
So I'll say it since I'm the one that suggested it. It's not omitting the categories per se. It's more of just simplifying that 6 points into a statement that allows a lot of leeway in terms of what people can suggest. That's all what I was trying to say with this, is that we just create a statement to say, you know, here's what the goal, the overarching goal of it is, without getting too specific to say, so if somebody looked at this and said, GHG reduction, and, you know, there's specific things to it, it's like, well, you know, I don't quite fit, how do I fit? And then maybe it's just not worth it. So keeping in mind the overall idea or the overall goal was to increase participation, just opening it up a little bit for more creativity and comments to the application. Because effectively it says the exact same thing as what we have with the points, just from what I feel in a cleaner, a little bit more open
So
way
that
of saying
statement that you gave is like, it includes the 6 points, but it keeps
Yeah.
it, like more like, you know, examples, but it's not like.
it doesn't include examples, it's just more of here's the high level
Like areas. where
points.
it's fun and that,
Right.
but it could. Okay, thanks for the clarification.
Yeah, and that was the intent.
And this moment is just suggestions, right?
Then I'm going to revise the application and then we'll bring the revised application to the next meeting. And that's where we can decide, but it would be helpful to get some guidance on like something like this, that like, you know, we don't need consensus, but like, how are we feeling? Like, do we think we should keep it to those, you know, like bulleted 6 points, or kind of change the way it is designed? Because currently we have like a category with some examples, right? And then if we have like a statement, it would be a little more mean.
But then is that gonna be, it's still gonna be associated with 6 categories essentially?
I think
No, I-
yes and no, right?
Yes, it essentially said the 6 categories in the statement.
Oh,
It's just not defined.
but then when, let's say an application goes for healthy and resilient ecosystems, then do you have an evaluation criteria based on that specific area? Or it's just,
No, like, again, it's a $50,000 fund,
Yeah.
and I get it, like, you could, but it would, like, the way that the matrix is designed right now is like, environmental sustainability priorities, impact, financial analysis, and innovation and collaboration. So if that area would fall under environmental sustainability priorities, page 23 of the matrix, of the package, Andrew. And currently in the matrix is based on the 6 categories. The area where I think people could potentially see some confusion, Mark, is like, is that like, is it this plus? Right? And I get it. And maybe like a happy medium here would be to, you know, trying to work within these areas, but reach out to the sustainability coordinator to discuss the project in more detail, which typically is what happens. I get your point. It's just there has to be something, right, that defines this.
can I do this?
Like in what?
Just like, can we?
Sure.
Not that we, it's, because I was thinking it would be good, something related to like community events or something related to, I call it culture. Specifically, and I don't know if that is,
So we have like, a section, so section 3 of the application for contributing partners. And, like we've added feedback here to elaborate on the type of partnership or proposed collaboration. So if there's, for example, like what is a project that we've approved past? The Invasive Species Center, Himalayan Balsam Cove. They're collaborating with at least 6 community stakeholders, Sioux College, Algoma Youth, Clean North, the Algoma Highlands Conservancy, Sioux Naturalists, Voyager Trails Association. Like they can talk about, they're all doing different community goals for that invasive. So like, I feel like that might be addressed there, or no, is that not, like, you think we should maybe have an event? Because what if it's not an event? What if it's a piece of equipment or something, right?
being in the wrong. Terms or like, for example, if I'm going to practice this and I'm automatically going to do some standards, right? But it doesn't really state that it's considered a green initiative. It's like, for example, when we do the maple syrup, it will be great to be able to apply on spoils the but it's not going to fit necessarily in the category.
Yeah.
It's within these 6 categories, but what we can do on, like, let's say a Saturday when like community to go harvest maple syrup from maple water, state for the boil, which we did for 6 weeks. That the impact of that can be huge, but it's not really captured.
I wonder if that would fall under the section 7 and the community benefits, like does it complement other local initiatives? That's page 22, anticipated impact on the community as a whole. And then we've added, we're going to add a section that's to address education and awareness. Maybe we could add to this the culture piece, like how does this?
Or education. If that's not, I mean, they're all education,
Yeah.
but no, none like it's not a specific category that you say here we just don't have this education.
Oh, I understand. So you're saying like a product, like add to the 6 categories, like an educational piece.
Yeah.
I understand. I think like we were concerned about that at the beginning, but so many projects have come my way that I basically had to say no dice because it's just education. Because again, like, I'm not saying education isn't valuable, but like, if you, the impact, like the measurable like, quantification may not be as easy as, for example, like an LED lighting measurement,
Yeah,
right?
sure, and that's where I think like the means.
Yeah,
Conflicting what I would consider the values of environmental sustainability,
yeah,
because if you don't learn about it, right? Yeah, sure, you can reduce your electricity use by putting LED lights in, but what is the impact of sitting on the land for a day or being on the land for a day and drinking fresh local water? Like, yeah, you can't
Yeah.
measure that. You need to-
yeah. What about adding that to the matrix, evaluation matrix for the
Like
project?
this one.
Like adding a section to it for like educational impact. I mean, if somebody's doing a light bulb changeover, it's going to be a low score.
Yeah.
But in comparison to something about, education, knowledge sharing, could hurt,
So-
Those are projects that they're.
right?
And I think that kind of goes back to what I was trying to say, is if it's more of just a generalized statement instead of points, you start to see a little bit more creativity, because if you look at that and said, well, there's no education piece in there. So then you don't apply. And I just, I keep saying it, I'll stop, but I can just keep saying, if it's more of a generalized statement in terms of this is kind of what we're looking for, that you're allowing that a little bit more of that freedom, I think,
Even like
to have these.
art, right? Like art in Central America is huge related to this work. But there's not really.
I see, like, I think, I get what you're saying, and I think that, I mean, like, I think we should add to the matrix, the project evaluation matrix, a weighted score for education. But I do believe that under community impacts, when we're going to add that they must address in here, the education awareness piece, okay? Like, it's easy enough to even incorporate that into a light bulb project, seriously. You could share the energy savings in a social media post. But I think that perhaps what we could do is like an educational project could fit into one of these 6 categories, but we add more detail in the community benefit and we add into the ranking matrix. And a project that has that scores higher. I think that could maybe be a happy medium. I worry, because like we want to use this fund, we want to educate, but we also want to like, get our boots on the ground and do some like, digging, get dirty, get out there. And like, of course you can do that with education, and a lot of the projects we funded, like the Himalayan balsam pole, for example, the tree planting up at FH Square, like those are big, but what happened afterwards, right? And there was no story that was left, it's like they're in the ground now.
That is how you tell the story after.
Yeah,
And that would like when you buy a new lawnmower, what's the story of when you put in your mind?
well, Matt's been recording like what they saved, like, and these are good insights to share with the community, like Run the Fuel. And also they did some social media posts, like, that's important, like, I don't want to just give you some money, and so they did a great job, I will say at that, but. And
I just want to make sure that we
Yeah.
don't run out of time. We're really good.
so I captured that,
Running out of time.
it's a good point, and there we go.
It sounds like you've got a way, and you'll
Yeah.
think about it some more about incorporating these ideas. It sounds like no one is in direct, and I'm looking up here at the screen, but it sounds like no one is in direct opposition to Mark's idea of being more general about the eligibility categories. Is there anyone who's like completely opposed to that? Tori is giving me a thumbs, Tori, I'm sorry, is giving me a thumbs up. Anyone? Okay, so it looks like that people are comfortable with that. What?
So I won't thumbs down my
We want
idea.
to come here.
Okay. Great. Cool. Okay, so applicant eligibility, currently it's nonprofits and city departments. In the feedback that we collected in July, it was discussed to consider opening eligibility to school groups, grassroots organizations, and those that aren't necessarily incorporated nonprofits. And also either remove the city from eligibility or require the city to write a business plan on how they intend to integrate the proposal into standard operating budget in subsequent years. So as I have said, operating budget request has been submitted. Once they have more details on, what that number for final approval is, it's got to go through all these processes. I'll let you guys know. But that's been done. So I think we should, if everyone's okay with it, definitely open up the eligibility to big groups, like other groups that was suggested. Any thoughts or comments on that? So there's a chat. That's right. We still have quorum. We're good. Yeah.
I can make a comment. It would be possible for the committee itself. I think a big part of our objective is education, and we have the money up front for bringing some speakers for staff in the community, like we did with Red Cadet.
I don't want to get, I'm sorry, Andre, I sincerely apologize for stopping you, but we need to talk about the fund itself and the criteria.
Okay, but I was just
So
thinking
if
it's
a
like,
speaker, fell under a category existing in, does it?
and the committee,
say
can the committee apply?
the committee cannot apply? Okay, and so I stay focused on like how we're gonna change the fund. That's-
Right, but it's not part of the conversation.
Yeah, the fund, like the committee currently cannot apply to,
But,
to the green fund for projects.
but if
But it's
that
not a
type of,
project.
but that type of thing though could be considered in your budget, correct?
I mean, it wouldn't be a large amount of money, but
So there is a way to fund things like that that don't take
Oh,
money out of
That's,
that
that's right.
project.
And I think that's,
It's like,
Suggested that.
yeah,
And, if you, like, I'll just add, if you have an idea for a project that doesn't fit within the scope of these meetings, please email me. Like, I work with different community stakeholders on projects all the time. And, this committee has its scope, but like the parking reform is a good one, and we'll talk about that and my staff update, because I do have a very limited budget that could pursue those things. So right now, as Don said, we're sticking to the fund. So how do people feel about those opening it up to the eligibility of those other categories? Any questions?
I think it's really important.
I think too, maybe individuals. Because, there's individuals who may not have an organization, and may not be, but it's essentially saying you have to have a corporation in order to get money from a corporation. And it just, if we're really trying to get people boots on the ground and people seeing sort of whatever. In multiple ways, and there's multiple ways with that, and I think opening it up to individuals, and just as a secondary thing, say about that. With respect to the second point there, in terms of the city, I think last time we said maybe what we could say is 20% is allocated to the city, and 80% is allocated only if that isn't reached at a certain date. Then the rest, then the city is eligible. But I think no matter what, that second part of that comment is that what is the plan? So we fund the electric lawnmower. What's the plan for you to continue to operate that in the future and to cover those costs? Like why are we funding your lawnmower?
Yeah,
Like would we fund a gas lawnmower?
so currently,
Yeah.
the way the city is designed,
Yeah,
or the way they run,
yeah,
okay, they don't, like, they have not traditionally budgeted. If we get rid
Right.
of this option
Yeah.
for the city, I look at it as training wheels. Like, we need these training wheels so they can see, like, for example, the charger project here at the Civic Center. They now know, the city people now know, okay, this is what it would cost to get a charger. Hopefully, they incorporate that insight into future operating budgets, okay? But right now, it's not there. So I hear you about the 80-20 rule. And I will talk to my boss and superiors about that again. But if we do land an operating budget for the city to implement the GHG reduction plan, that's going to alleviate pull on this fund. And having to go through an application in council, when the city could just use that fund already. So,
Well, then maybe just adding the stipulation of just showing how, like, long term. Like,
Yeah.
what's the long, for the city specific, having this additional criteria of, you know, okay, you've got these things, that's great, it's good stuff, put in new lights. But what else are you doing?
yeah, that's a good point, like specifically for city departments. And just very quickly, the individual piece, the city does have a fund. It's called Neighbors Helping Neighbors for individuals to apply to for climate change projects. So we already have that. Actually. Great, I'll send you the link.
Do I have to be associated?
No, no, and
The other thing that's important for us all to remember is that we do have a commitment in writing from the CAO. Because one of the 6 priorities that we outlined was how, like, investing in, I forget how it was worded. But they're going to incorporate these ideas and these, goals into the budget more specifically. There, and so we have that commitment. So I personally, I feel good about that. And how this all shakes out, we'll see by the time we come back in September. But,
Yeah,
I have what Emily's saying.
And I think like what we should do is we should see what happens with this operating request as well. Like when we amend this fund, it's not finite. We can go and amend this many times as we want. And maybe we amend it with a clause saying, providing the city, you know, creates this budget. And if they don't, we will revisit it. But I do think that the idea of having something specific for city applications to kind of put a bit more heat on them and say, hey, what are you going to do to maintain this long term, i.e. incorporate it into operating budgets like your question, Tori? Like this is again a fairly new fund. We have not so far incorporated, like this is the first time like an electric charger, for example, has been, you know, we're going to do that at the city. And so it should, so I should have more details on that for you next year. And also the sustainability audit, which is a priority in our letter, will hopefully help highlight that in more detail. Stay move slow here.
So, sorry, just I know, I'm gonna get moving here. I guess for me as a compromise, because I was against eliminating the city from participating, but maybe more as of a compromise, we look at it and say, you know, third quarter, fourth quarter of the year, if the budget has not been allocated, then we open it up to city applications to say, okay, well, we give the first 3 quarters of the year open to the community, and if the community doesn't participate or chooses not to, then why don't we open it then up to the city with the exact same requirements to say, yeah, you need to provide a little bit more reassurance that this happens and it's you know, it's not just the continual process for you to get extra budget type of thing. It's you know, we're trying to get ahead of that curve. To Tori's comment, so we've been doing this for a while. I've been part of this committee for a while. You start to see it a lot in actually the lighting. So we were funding lighting projects years ago up to LED. And you actually start to see it because I've talked with a lot of different city departments on, you know, now they're just doing LED lighting, you know, that put it in part of their budgets and upgrades and things. So you're starting to see some of that stuff that we did in the past, you know, funding to see just kind of integrated into everyday budgeting and process improvement or building improvement, things like that. So
And the training ones.
right,
Maybe
yes, yeah.
Okay. I'm just gonna go through anything that I think I needed clarification. That'll be the one, that was clear. Okay, so the environmental benefits. So if what I'm gathering, we're going to get rid of the specific 6 categories, have a statement, for emission reduction. We're gonna ask applicants to add details on emissions like 1 and 2, like scope steps 1 and 3 as well, like do the life cycle emission reduction estimate. Or like evaluate the delta between the proposed project and an alternative. I recognize that feedback. I just know that at this point in our community, I don't think we're there. I'm not saying that's right. But I do believe that the communication strategy, what we're going to talk about next, would be a good place to start. And then we revisit that at another time. Because I don't, in the applications, in 18 applications that I've seen, I don't know, like, if people would be able to do that, like the applicants.
Like I told you, I'm just gonna say that I was recently at a conference and I highly recommend it actually. I think you should go to it because I think you'll enjoy it. It's called RE3, Restore, Rewire.
Oh, is that the one in Quebec?
That was the one. And there was a group of youth that presented there, 12 youth at a school who built a pollinator space. And they did a whole analysis of GHG emissions reductions. It's incredible. I'll ask
Right.
permission to send you the link to their talk.
Great.
But they are, 14, 15-year-old girls, and they are maybe 16, but whatever. They did a whole analysis, and it was robust and complete, and it was amazing. I thought it was amazing. And if we could provide like information like that to applicants so that they could see how things are done in like very simplistic, easy to follow terms, then not necessarily making a requirement, but this probably associates to the communication strategy.
Yeah.
That then we say, well, should you be interested in looking at this deeper? Here are some resources.
This is the way that we put it.
Or here's some resources to check out.
Yeah.
I've done this with before.
That would be great. And I would love to even do like a whole segment. What is scope 1? What's scope 2? What's scope 3?
Yeah.
How do you calculate that? Like even scope 2 for some people is really confusing, right? So that would be a great resource to share. Or like, okay. So I just
So
want,
to add to that, is there a simple template we could include as an optional as a start?
at
Is
this
there
point-
any simple templates out there in the world?
At this point, given the capacity of staff and also my knowledge of the applicants, I believe that we should start with a communication strategy. If the applicants are keen, willing, have the capacity, I will happily work with them to do those calculations, happily do so. But at this point, I think we should revisit this when we reevaluate this.
It's, again, is it called, put it in the parking lot? Right?
And
Can it?
Put a part, it goes in the parking lot, we don't forget about it.
No.
Post it, and,
Okay, so very quickly on intake rounds. Okay, so that's section 8. Currently, applications are received on a rolling basis. And we review them monthly. Sometimes we have applications, sometimes we don't. When I work with external stakeholders within the community, I do my best to encourage them to apply as soon as possible. I haven't been paying attention to the screen, sorry, Tori. So what some of the feedback that we received was to create like deadlines for like possibly 2 intake periods or quarterly maybe, to increase competition, build buzz around submitting an application. If you want to do a project in the summer, submit it early for Q1, just to make sure you're gonna have time to plan for it. Again, at the beginning of this presentation today, I did say that as it stands right now, a project may not be an idea yet. And so having rolling intakes can allow for more, things that come up possibly, but open to discussion. Art? I thought you raised your hand.
No,
Oh,
I have comments. of
oh,
course.
okay, sorry, I thought I saw your
but-
name. Go for it.
So I'd like to kind of go back to the other point. So if we move the city applications to Q4, do we have the volume to really worry about then a rolling or a intake
Round.
period rounds? You know, it's just,
No, at present, I can tell you 100%, no. We've got
So-
we've got a dry spell.
right. So if it becomes a problem, do we then just say, we'll revisit it then? But right now, we just kind of take applications as we get them.
Maybe it's not a matter of, it's who's eligible.
Right.
It's if we open up eligibility, then we'll probably get my applicants.
So maybe we should see it, like, well, how does it help? We get more people banging on our door, or do we want to address it now? As we do this refresh, because anything we suggest here has to be approved by council. That's how this rolls, so it's a process.
I live quarter. And then there's chart dates that you can really push. And rather than please do this whenever. You know, it's like, please do this on this day, it's the first information.
And the good thing about quarterly is it's more than biannual, right? So like there's more options.
Yeah.
Right?
And then it brings in the whole city piece.
And given my experience working with applicants now, I can say like, unless like it's, you know, most of them I'm working with for months. Right? So,
It gives them a thing and they're fail to get in the first round. in the first
Revise
quarter.
it.
Yeah, then you can revise. And instead of feeling like, oh,
what do people think?
I'm fine with quarterly. I would ask that question just for, with other funds within the city,
They're working towards the same thing.
quarterly.
Yeah, I actually buy
Okay,
twice a year.
we do biannual for arts and culture.
Yeah.
But what I was gonna refer to was if you can apply again, okay? I don't, I
And you
believe,
for arts and culture.
I don't believe you can.
Okay.
In the same calendar year, like you make your application, if you're unsuccessful, then you cannot apply again until the following. We should just check out how that is typically done.
If there's a reason, like, or if it's like it needs to be finessed, like I think they should have the opportunity to apply again, but I will do my
Just,
research.
look, you can ask Brenda and
Yeah.
other,
Well, then, to apply again.
we need to move on.
Yeah,
now,
because we're good.
Miss,
We can move on.
your,
Okay,
there's other notes at the bottom there.
Yeah.
Including like deadline for spending money, you have to spend it in the
Oh.
calendar year, things like that, that
Yeah.
we're talking
those
about.
are, that was clear to me, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, so, moving on then to 6.3, which is the, climate communication. Story. Share screen, well, 25. I wonder why this, can you see the PowerPoint, Tori?
Yeah, I can see it.
Still?
Yep.
Okay. 6.3, so climate communication strategy, this is our third project that we want to focus on this year. Been a topic of discussion for a while at the committee, so eager to get this going forward. Just a couple of things that I wanted to highlight. We were given a worksheet, like a document where you can put some ideas. This is a little more high level brainstorming. I wanted to highlight some of the stuff that we've done so far at the city from 2019 to now. So first of all, we created a webpage on the city for information about energy incentive programs, where public EV charging stations are. I actually have the GIS team working on an interactive map right now. Quarterly newsletter submissions are being completed by myself to the Sioux Climate Hub. They distribute this electronically to their network every month. So I let them know what we've been doing here at the city. Page 13, Andrew. Sorry, I didn't have time to staple everything. I will do better next time.
No, you speak, I took it out.
Oh, okay. So we've done a lot of, from 2019 to now, we've done over 40 community engagement and consultation presentations. Students, youth, nonprofits, post-secondary, the health unit, business, commercial, Indigenous, provincial, and national. So we've done quite a bit of outreach on the work that we've done. Information webinars and workshops. We've done one on solar, parking reform, partnered with Garden River First Nation on 4 webinars for understanding Ontario's energy sector, home energy retrofits, residential and commercial energy incentives, as well as home energy efficiency financing. We funded the Downtown Association in Queen North with money to develop a green tips brochure, and this was distributed at the 2022 Rotary Fest. We developed an energy incentive for business infographic. This was provided to the City Economic Development Office. I'm waiting on a sustainability guidebook from Algoma University. This was the City Studio project. It's going on 2 years now, waiting for that.
Supposed to be.
I have to follow up with the City Studio people. I can't even remember. Also, we have done a variety of different environmental engagement projects. This year, Bike to Work Week, we've partnered with different community groups on bio blitzes. We did the City Nature Challenge this year, celebrated World Water Day for 2 years in a row, and over 400 students from the Algoma District School Board this year hit the pavement literally and painted a yellowfish, part of the Yellowfish Road program for stormwater awareness. We have funded over 18 community projects with money from the City's Green Initiative Fund, $173,000 and change. We did an energy efficiency social media campaign. We have the city's plastic-free pledge campaign, where we partnered with Clean North. And this year, our summer students launched Project Sunshine on the city's Instagram to highlight community members and businesses who aim to protect the environment. 7 local businesses, including the Soup Witch, Lucy Rowe Beauty, OC Beauty, JC Sugar, Home Bakehouse and Cafe, the Soup Climate Hub, and Core. I think this was great, and I'd love the city summer students to continue that on a basis. Also in September, we will be hosting Mike Layton, who is former City of Toronto councillor and now York University's very first chief sustainability officer, to do a presentation to our greater community. I'm going to talk about that later on. So you were all provided with a worksheet that's on page 25. Thank you, Andrew. Page 25. I do apologize. There was an issue with our printer. But we do have this electronically. So we want to develop a strategy for like a document that's a plan, really, that tells us what to do. And then we also want to develop some marketing materials. So I guess I just want to open it up to people. It would be very helpful for me if you could provide me things in writing, like if you can. I just want to get an understanding of like the goal, like any ideas on what you think we should achieve through this action. Like, do we want to raise awareness? Do we want to promote practice? So it's like sustainable practices, encourage behavior change, support a specific environmental cause. These are some of the things. Who do we want to target? I will caveat all this that you have one staff person who's working on this. Limited resources. I have done outreach to the city's Climate Hub, which Tobin is a member, as well as Clean North, and they have capacity constraints as well on what they can do. They're doing a lot of great work in our community, but it's very important that we try to work with other organizations as much as possible. So I don't know how much people have prepared for this. This is going to be an ongoing project. I've actually started a document myself with like ideas and suggestions, but like, do we want to go over the questions and then maybe everybody go home and, take some more time to get their ideas to me or discuss it now? We're good for time. Like, we do have about 10 minutes at this point.
Anybody got some ideas?
I've had a lot of feedback, like we need to communicate, what we're doing with the GHG reduction plan, what's happening at the city. I will say this is city sustainability report, which is an annual report that started this year, does a good job in highlighting everything. And it's, you know, we're gonna get that on the city's website, but otherwise, as projects come up, press releases, social media posts, you know, different initiatives, but my understanding would be like, you know, we want to talk about climate crisis, the urgency, you know, what residents and businesses can do. Other municipalities have, you know, done social media campaigns, they've developed brochures. A lot of it is project based. I think it would be important to target, you know, the residential sector as well as businesses. And if there's any materials that we actually would like to make, we do have a small budget that we can go out, hire like a graphic design that is, let's do this and work with them as a committee to establish. So I developed these questions to kind of make the conversation, but that's sort of it. Oh, sorry, go ahead.
No, Emily, you answered my question. I think when I first took a look at the worksheet, I found it a bit overwhelming because there's so many ways you could take this and so many people and groups that can be educated, be it residents, city staff. There's a whole gamut. And so if I think hearing from you, if it makes sense to move towards the direction of focusing this on residents, and it seems like maybe behavior change, and broader sort of foundational education, then that helps me in thinking about how I would, you know, thinking about feedback, I guess.
Great, happy to clarify it. You know, like I have a summer student who is actually working on like a report and some examples of what like other communities are doing, like other cities. And like it's really interesting. Like I took a quick look at it today before this meeting, and like, you know, one community they're developing an app, like where you can, you know, determine information about this or that. Another one they're developing like a credit, like a co-op credit. I can't recall if it was high school or post-secondary, to work on initiatives in the community, which I thought was like really interesting. So there really is like no need to reinvent the wheel here. Like there is a lot of great stuff. And, you know, I'm happy to share that with the committee, but I know like we do need to increase like education about emissions, the scopes, what can you do beyond stuff that we've always thought we can do, right? So there's certainly a need for some messaging, but we have some limitations on what we can do. So I don't know if it's helped that I clarified this, maybe you want to take it back. I think it's a really important project that this committee complete.
Really need to see that. You know, like, there's so much happens on media now. And especially to encourage young people to look at this within the city. I think like a 5-minute video that captures what we've done, that captures the fund and some of the projects that are eligible, and like maybe you as a superstar, like stating like this is what we want, this is what we want to achieve, this is where we're going, and we need your help. You know what I mean?
People like videos,
Yeah.
like actually in Wawa. I always talk about Wawa. It's
Why?
like because I used to work there.
Oh, okay.
I developed their energy plan, and we made a video, and it did the exact same thing. We highlighted initiatives that the municipality was doing, like different activities that the groups were doing. There was no fund, but like it would be a great way to actually get the word out there about the fund as well.
And even like all the different people who are applying, maybe one of the criteria is that they send short film or pictures of what they've done or the process of what they're doing. then you don't have to have B-roll. You can get the B-roll from the plan.
I have a lot of pictures. I definitely send pictures. That's a very smart, like working smarter, not harder way of thinking. People like videos. They don't want to read in a big report.
You know what? And I'm the exact opposite. I hate watching videos. I would rather speed read the content, and I don't know if that's a generational thing or whatever. I want to make sure we don't run out of time here, and I want to ask Tobin about his thoughts on this, on sort of this in general and what you want to contribute right now in this meeting.
I think what motivates me most is urgency of climate change and teaching the community more, especially the leadership within corporations, larger organizations, not so much as calling them out, but providing an opportunity to showcase how leadership in different areas are what they're doing for to address climate change. They're not doing much, and that's a little bit of pressure to stay.
Like corporate, like in our community, like what businesses are doing.
Absolutely.
So perhaps like within this, if we do, I think a report and a video would be required, like all the highlights, like a specific action with you. But like maybe in this, if you want to do like a video essay type thing, showcasing what community members, the corporate, like organizations are doing as well. That might be a way to do it, because that was done in the showcase by the city's summer students this year, like on Instagram. They did this Project Sunshine where they did like 7 different businesses, highlighted what they're doing that's sustainable. Most of it is pretty neat. Like none of it is like really taking those big steps. And like I think it's one thing to say, okay, hey, but like it's highlighting those that are taking that step above, right? Like that's how I felt when I do you want to chime in here with anything?
Yes,
Okay.
but I would almost, since I need organization, I would almost look at it in terms of, are we going to create a marketing plan?
Oh, yeah,
So starting
this would be
from
part of it, yeah.
what is our objective? So getting everybody's input on what is the objective? What would you like to see come from this?
Yeah.
And, what specific things? So to me, that's where I would start.
And that's where we have,
Kind of where we're getting.
Yeah.
Here, though, with the first 2 questions. And I will fully admit that I haven't responded to
Would
you
it
about
help?
this yet, but
would it
I'd
help
like to do this.
if I created like an online survey for people to fill this in?
Do you have anything you want to add right now?
I just find this process, I don't think like that, so it's hard for me to. Like this is a very linear thinking, and I'm not a linear thinker, so I'm more of a, so that's why it's very. I have a hard time with it.
So if we created like there is a lot going on here, okay? And this is by no means what we have to. I will agree with Tori, like there's 11 categories here. I'll streamline this down, okay? I, as someone who writes project plans for a living, this is sort of how I think. But I'll water this down so it's more profitable and develop an online form. But like,
I want to share my time. Oh, can I do that? Okay. Every single thing, every category you have in that plan is really important. Okay. However, as I am forced to sit here and think about this, which is always good, because like this process is forcing me to think. Okay. Because sometimes when we just read things, it doesn't get us thinking, right? So, and it goes back a little bit to what Tori said, it goes back a little bit to what Tobin said, et cetera, and even in what Andre said. We don't know what we're trying to accomplish yet. So the how needs to come next, I think. Like, how do we best accomplish that? but you all here said, and we're all very familiar with it, and we're aware of it, as some of you who are very active in doing your part and changing your lives and behaving differently. Okay, versus other people who are not there yet. And so to me, this communication conversation is about achieving change, about people becoming passionate and believing that the world needs them to change. Okay? Like, we have to change. So how, like, if that is the, if you agree and you know, share thoughts or whatever, but if the overarching goal is to encourage, demand, pressure, whatever nice or not so nice word, okay, because we all know, like, look what we're living in this summer. We all do things that are causing huge harm to our environment. And it's only getting worse. And we can have all the COP27s and 28s and 26s and climate change people getting together and governments promising to do things, but we're not getting there. We're not getting there as a society. We can do our own little part. That's what we're here to do, right? We can do our own little part. So if the overarching goal is to push for change and change in behavior, if everybody agrees with that, then the how we do that can come after, right? But if it's change we need, so we're doing our part, then it's who we're trying to change, who we're trying to influence, and then from there we can decide how, you know, how we do that.
But
How bold do we want to
it
be?
might be more than one person.
Oh, absolutely. But and that's where you get into those categories like youth or residents of, like, community members or corporations, or all of the above in pockets, right? Like, what is that? Who is that? But if is it change? If we're looking for change, then that's it. We're looking to change behavior, which is noted there. You have that there, right? You may absolutely.
Where my part goes when you speak that way is to then say, this is what I'm doing. And like, I've been doing work in this area for over a decade, and I'm happy with the work that I'm doing. And there's still the urgency, but like, I'm calm because I know what I've done. You know what I mean? And I can say what I've done. It's you know, like, I don't have the capacity to do more, but so to me, leading by example is the best way to lead. And that brings us back to part of the conversation the last time. It's like, we're sitting here approving things, and that's great. And it's important. And this conversation is important. And but I'm like, okay, what are we going to do us so that this is what the environmental sustainability community for the city since is doing. So at the end of the year, because that's what I thought when I was joining. I'm on another committee at a university, and like they say it's the same format, but it's like there's 68 things on this list instead of 3. And so I'm like, okay, what can we do?
Go on
together?
this committee at this university too.
No, I gave up. I was like,
Yeah.
like, what is the, like, I
That's-
want to
yeah.
do stuff.
Yeah.
I want to go and design brands.
Yeah.
I am doing that.
Yeah.
Not for here, but
Yeah.
like, you know what I mean, I
Yeah.
want to go show people how to plant in a way that their grandchildren will be from.
Yeah.
I want to do this, but you can't do it alone. I
Yeah.
can't do it alone. There has to be a alone.
When I joined this committee, one of the things that I feel strongly about is that people choose that the way we build our community, the way we do things, that's what changes behavior. People behave by the infrastructure. So you want to decide what the behavior that you want and you're engineering the city accordingly. And transportation is a classic. So these three, I call the triangle of change in transportation. People choose to travel a certain way for three reasons. Comfort, how much it costs, how fast it is. So if you create a city that is fast and cheap to go by public transit, but driving is hard and difficult, then you will choose. We always make choices. So when we say we make choices and we behave a certain way, what we don't understand or we don't appreciate is that that behavior is dictated by the environment that we're in. So we're not really making a choice, and that's what the engineering Don McConnell is saying, give people choices. I said, no, we don't give people choices to create the behavior by the way you build things. So I was trying to influence, I was hoping to influence the people in charge of making the way we build infrastructure. So that's why I'm at this table, and that's why I think these projects are fine. But if we want big changes, we have to change the rules of the game.
And that's what we're doing with that letter. Like a small potato you might see,
Yeah.
like trying to get other departments at the city to really incorporate this into their MO.
Yeah.
Is so important. And that's,
Exactly, yeah.
and that's where this letter comes, from. We're gonna hold the city to account, we're gonna follow up on them and see, will that make it do it? And hopefully it does, because,
And that's why I asked the questions that I asked, because
and that's fair, Andre, but like, again, the way that this corporation is designed at present.
Yeah.
This is my scope,
yeah,
that is it.
that's it.
So this is us moving that boulder up the hill.
Yeah.
It's hard, it's slow, but I can tell you, it's happening, but you have to keep doing it. So I have.
And that's a form of change.
Yeah.
That's a form of change. So everything we're trying to do is enforce or influence change.
Correct.
So when it comes to communicating that.
Yeah.
I think that that definition of what we're trying to do comes before how we do it. And all those parts are really important.
Okay.
So I'm just asking if people could think about what should be the key thing we're trying to do, not a list of 68, and I don't mean thing exactly, I mean, like, if change is, as I've described it, the goal, right? And if it's not, then, we say that, but if that's what the goal is, then we've landed on something that then we can build communication around, and we can get creative. And we can, how we share messages and how we share messages with those different target audiences. Okay. If it's not changed, that's fine. What is it? So what
I was gonna add, so sitting here listening, you're hearing three different communications messages from different people. So you talk about community, talking about, going into community, communicating and being hands-on and working with the community to teach and educate people. And that is a communication point. Tobin talks about, let's go into the community, talk with corporations and work with corporations and deal with them and hold them accountable. And then you're talking about dealing, let's go to the city to deal with infrastructure and communicate that way. So you're seeing, the difference in key messages that we all have or that we all look at. And so I think that's part of what you're building this communications plan to is, if those are, say, three pillars of what we're looking at for communication, and then we start to say, okay, well, how do we go out and do that? If, we're looking for help or we're looking for support, bringing in speakers to show the engineering department, or looking for bodies, volunteers to say, hey, I want to go out and show, but I can't do it myself, so I need the help to educate, to put on these events, then you do that. And then you look at corporations, okay, well, how do we communicate with people? How do we contact these people to, start to hold them accountable? And that's where you start to build that, that plan. And I guess, and I'm the same way as Emily is I need to see that from a project management standpoint, to see that steps build and bring it together to say, okay, so we know what we're doing.
But everybody's example requires change,
Right, absolutely.
right?
So I've captured this, I'm going to, go ahead. Go ahead. I'm going to revise this, turn it into a survey monkey, so that everyone can send more language. And it will.
I want to be really clear. I'm not negating anything that's there at all. It's all important and it all has to be done.
Okay, so
And just
we are over, but
go up there before I put it on.
It would be so important here to have each of us. Like, there's so many different like perspectives, but they're all important.
Yeah.
And I would like to see them, I think the city should see who runs the community and how we perceive each one of these.
They picked us.
But like, what, who else, if you wanna build awareness, like, I mean, it was many years ago, but like, we built a video in Paula and we put it on the website and it was pretty darn cool, and we featured, like, there was a school, they were doing recycling and there's no recycling. in Paula. There were solar panels on 6 municipal buildings, there are no solar panels in any of our buildings right now, and we featured that. And it was really cool, and I think it would be an interesting resource as part of this overall strategy. So I know we're over. If people have to run, please, but we're gonna finish this. I can do my staff update in like 2 minutes, so if you can, hang on. Because it's been 2 meetings now and I just wanna get through it. So, okay, we talked about the letter. I'm just gonna take over here now. Okay, is that all right?
You go, girl.
All right, so agenda 7, this is in your agenda package. The letter, we did receive a response from Malcolm, the CAO, which is exciting. And it is going to be considered, it's been shared with the city senior leadership team and council. And will be used not only for the 2024 budget deliberation in early December, but also considered in the development of the city's new strategic plan. You may recall from a few meetings ago, the strategic plan is the city's guiding document, and very, 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 very hopeful that climate action will be included in it. So Donna, as chair, responded, and we will be following up on this. So we did get a response, which is great. Quick staff update. I will direct your attention to the screen for those who aren't looking at their agenda package. We've had a couple of there's some good pictures on here of the Lead a Trap project. Over the past couple of months, a lot of things on the go. We did the Yellowfish Road program. If you go around different areas in the community, you'll see some yellowfish on the streets with the words rainwater only. This was a really great initiative that we partnered with the Oklahoma District School Board on.
If we wanted to go see one of them, where would we go?
Could go on to Muriel Drive in Woodlands or Central, you could go on to Folsom Avenue. I have a list of all the schools for, Pinewood, like there's a variety of schools that they're all around. I can share that with the committee. We did complete our city's corporate senior leadership second biannual city department energy and sustainability meeting. This was sort of a remedial action step from our 10% increase in emissions. So hopefully it will help keep corporate staff on track. The EV charger project here at City Hall, funding application has been approved by council. Funding for NRCan has been submitted and we're working on design drawings with the PUC. Actually, those have been obtained. So that one's moving forward. CDF green project updates. The trees are planted at FH Square. If you haven't driven by, take a look. It looks pretty great. And the Lead a Trap project was installed. I've got some pictures here showing what the Lead a Traps look like. I've got some really good publicity around that one. The Deep Energy retrofit project RFP was released last week, closing August 21st, and we've had a lot of interest from different vendors. So really looking forward to that project taking place. Bike to Work Week is another environmental activity that took place this year. It's been a long time since the city participated in this. The city partnered with Algoma Public Health and the Sioux Cycling Club. There were 7 organized events, different rides, different challenges. A decent amount of participants. I think we could do better. There is interest from both the health unit and of work with the city moving forward. So I'll put it to the committee if anyone has ideas on how we grow these numbers in the future. That would be fantastic. Last but not least, I just wanted to highlight in September. So maybe for context, last year the committee spearheaded a parking reform webinar here in Sault Ste. Marie. We brought in Brent Darian, who is an internationally renowned consultant for municipalities. It was really well received. I think we had like 70 people attend that webinar, got a lot of positive feedback. It was creative, outside the box thinking for this municipality. We've approached Mike Layton, who is a former City of Toronto councillor, as well as newly first appointed Chief Sustainability Officer at Burke University. And he is willing to present to our communities, so not just the committee, not just the corporation, but we're going to open it up to the greater community to talk about some of the initiatives that he worked on when he was working with the City of Toronto, but also some of the work that he's doing in his new role as the very first sustainability officer. So I'm going to be working with him to determine, I'm meeting with him this month, to see if he's open to actually coming in person, see to hold like an event in our community, or if he would prefer to do it virtually. And I will let him know what he says about that.
I think it's really important.
I'm gonna push for it. I'm gonna push for it, hopefully we'll be able to it. And then I've also linked in the agenda package, Mike Layton's LinkedIn page. He can do a better job at his CV than myself. But he's been involved in a lot of really interesting projects, like Toronto's home energy loan program, which we're trying to kick off something like that here in the Sioux, the Bloor Street Pipeline project. Talking a little bit about the atmospheric fund, which is a really interesting think tank in the GTA, as well as the sewage heat recovery project, because that aligns with some of the work that we're doing in our audits. So this is going to be open to all community members, virtual or in person, fingers crossed for in person, and it is hosted by USC. So if anyone would like to be more involved in this, please reach out. But it's part of our responsibilities. Creating opportunities for the community to learn about climate change, environment, etc. We had a really great experience last year with the park uniform webinar. Hopefully we have this. That's it. Sorry for going over. Next meeting is September 5th. Motion to adjourn.
All in favor?
We'll need to move around.
Mover and a seconder, Tobin and Andrew. Thank you, Emily.
Thanks, guys.
So, and just a reminder, like, that's a special meeting for Mr. Layton, like, it's not on our regular meeting, correct? So,
Yeah,
and I
that
will help in any way to provide accommodations or space or whatever, if that's gonna facilitate getting him here in person. Okay. You tell me what I can do. Well, there's another good idea. Okay.
Thank you. See you, Tori. Oh, I see you put a note.
What time?
A staff.
Thanks, guys.
Yeah, that's a good point, Tori.
Thanks, Tori.
What time is this thing on the 8th? Whatever you know that.
So the Jack, Mike Layton presentation, I believe is on the 8th of September, currently scheduled for 4 p.m. But I want to solidify all those with Mike when I see. So that's Friday, right? I'm not sure. I'm getting this off on memory. I don't believe, maybe it's the 6th. I'm not sure. Okay.